people ask me all the time when I'm slinging myself out of a perfectly good aircraft at 1,000 feet or 15,000 feet toward the ground. They go, "You're crazy for doing that willingly." And when I look at a bull rider growing up, I thought I wanted to do it for a minute till I got stepped on once by a steer. When I see you guys get on those bulls, I think what person willingly gets on this 2,000-pound beast and does it? What did bull riding mean to you growing up?
Pretty much everything. I never did it to impress anyone else. I done it to test myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if I was a cowboy enough to do it. And it's going to hurt.
Yep.
It does hurt. I'm 57 now and I'm beat up. I've got scars all over me. And I promise you right now, if my body would let me, I'd get on one right this second.
Yeah.
I love that feeling. The adrenaline rush is unbelievable. When you climb up on one and nod, I mean, oh my goodness, it's you and that bull. Ain't nothing else in the world.
Yep.
And it's hard to explain what made you want to do it. I can tell you why I did it, but I don't know whatever possessed me to do it the first time.
What about the second time?
Well, this is kind of a messed up story. This is how backwards I am. Both of my older brothers were trying to ride, and both of them rode decent. My middle brother got hurt when he was in high school. A bull stepped on him, lacerated his liver. They called us from the hospital and said, "If you want to see him, you better get up here now." And I made myself a vow right then that they could not hurt two of us. And so I just give it everything I had.
See, this is why I love this. I knew when me and Lou started talking. So those of you that rode a bull or been in a rodeo know exactly what Lou's talking about. Those of you that have been in a gunfight or jumped out of an airplane know exactly what he's talking about, because it's the same exact feeling. You know, the first time I went out and got in a good gunfight, I just couldn't wait to do it again. You know, it doesn't make no sense to 80, 90, 99% probably of the population, but it's just kind of the way we're built, I think. Welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. You guys all know me. I'm your host, Yuma Barnett, and today I'm coming to you from Grandma's front porch here in Pie Town, New Mexico. And yes, you heard that correctly. I'm just outside of Pie Town, New Mexico. It's spelled just like I said it there, Pietown. And it's one of the places, if you've had a good steak on your plate at some point in your life, it probably came from this region. And the guy sitting next to me is an old cowboy that's been around these. I better be careful. Cowboy,
I'm not old.
Well, not old, you know. As he said when he walked in the door, I'm in my prime.
Absolutely.
And this is Nicole Sanders, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I have Lou on the show, on the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. So I attribute my success in the military to growing up here in the Southwest in New Mexico on cattle ranches. And I'll say, Lou's going to get into that, but I'll say what I learned here transferred directly into the military and to the infantry specifically, and we'll get into that a little bit. And Lou has a pretty interesting background as a bull rider, you know, cowboy, and a little bit of a poet. So if you're thinking of Baxter Black, he's got a little bit of that in him. He's a great man, a great father. He's a kind of, everybody knows Lou in this area in Catron County, New Mexico. It's either Crazy Lou, Lewis,
Wild.
or Lou, or Wild Lou, right? And he's on here because we're just going to talk a little bit about, there's a lot of military members that come from ranches and farms. And anytime I was getting a new guy coming into my platoon or company, the first thing I asked them is, said, "Where are you from? And what'd your daddy do?" And when they said, "I grew up on a farm in Iowa," or "I grew up on a ranch in Montana or Colorado or New Mexico," I didn't care what their test scores were or their PT test was. I said, "You're on my team," because I knew the work. They had a work ethic and a mentality that is that you just cannot replicate. And I was always, and I've seen those guys and girls that came from this part of the world succeed in high levels in the military. And it comes from guys like Lou. Lou's not my dad, but in this area, it'd say it takes a village to raise kids. That's one of these places you do it. Lou was at all the basketball games when I was growing up. You know, ranch communities, they'll come together and brand calves and work cattle together. And it's kind of a military-esque type community that you wouldn't think about. And I think it's good to share that story and a little bit about the dying breed, maybe, and we'll get into it if that's happening or not. But most of you that know a cowboy now probably think of Yellowstone, and although entertaining, is not really the reality of what it's like to live in this part of the world and be a provider and provide a service to the rest of the nation and put food on people's tables that you just take for granted every day. So I'm going to quit monopolizing the mic here. I'm going to pass it over to Lou and let him introduce himself, and we'll get into the conversation.
Well, Yuma, I'm proud to be here, first of all. My name's Louis Sanders. I grew up on the east side of New Mexico on a ranch that my dad was running. We moved down to Truth or Consequences when I was a junior in high school and cowboying the whole way through my early life, breaking horses, stuff, anything I could do to make money and try to support my bull riding habit, which is very expensive. But then I got lucky and married my wife, Nicole, and we moved up here to her family's ranch, and now I'm co-owner of that ranch. And I've been very blessed. I'm very fortunate to be in this community and have great friends like yourself and Tuffy and the whole bunch around. It does take a village, not just to raise a child, but to keep a family going.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And most cowboys and ranchers, I know they're the most humble people. Lou summarized that in about a minute, but it's much deeper than that. And I'll ask you, just starting off, when people ask me what's it like to be a ranger, it's very hard to explain, because if you haven't done it and people haven't experienced, it's hard to understand. And working out here and doing what you do is the same way. But if somebody asked you, what's it like to be a cowboy, what does that mean?
Well, there's a misperception. People think that, and I've seen it on the movie screen for years, and people talk about it. If somebody gets in a fight or somebody is disobedient, they say, oh, they're a real cowboy. Yeah. But that is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. Growing up a cowboy, my dad was a cowboy, my grandfather's a cowboy, the whole Sanders line of family. Basically, that's what we've done. Probably too dumb to do anything else, but that's where we're at. And to me, being a cowboy means doing whatever it takes to raise a good, healthy cow herd to provide meat for the U.S.
Yeah. You guys have heard some of the other podcasts. Don Barden, specifically, businessman out of Atlanta, and he says the people that are most fulfilled in life are those that are serving others. And
absolutely,
that is what a cowboy is. You are serving others.
Well, I take a lot of pride in being able to do what I do, whether it's working on fences, the windmills. It takes a lot to keep a cow herd healthy. And the ranching thing, you mentioned Yellowstone a while ago, that's Hollywood. Yep. I mean, I'm not going to discredit those people, whatever. They do a great job. They're entertaining people, but they don't do what I do.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's just entertainment.
Right.
And we spoke a little bit when I sent you the script. You wanted to make sure you got in there. You're growing up as a cowboy, and what it was your dad and what the influence he had on your life. If you go into that a little.
Well, my dad was my best friend. He just passed a couple of years ago, and we were as close as we could ever possibly be. But he grew up a cowboy in West Texas. His dad was a cowboy from West Texas. And Dad did everything he could to make a living to raise us boys right. I've got two older brothers, and then after a certain time, my dad got remarried and had a couple more brothers. And he taught every one of us the values of being a cowboy and being respectful and polite no matter the situation. Yep. And when you get into a pinch, you fight your way out of it. But other than that, you just stick your nose to the grindstone and work.
Yeah. And you say something there, like I said, I told you we're going to go off tangent a little bit, and this is the first time, but you said it there, the values of being a cowboy. And when I say that, it reminded me of my Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, right, selfless service. Those are very similar to what you would do in your line of work.
To me, it's hard for me to believe that, because I respect you and your company and everybody that y'all worked with so much that what I do is basically meaningless in my mind compared to what you do.
I appreciate him saying that, but it's again, it kind of shows the parallelness as my brother peeks in over here and is trying to sneak a little photo. I tried to get Tuffy to come on, but he said it'd take him too long to get his hair done.
Well, not only that, he's real quiet and he's dumb. It would take us a long time to get him to use proper English.
You spoke about it. See that we ran him off, so
that was good.
So you spoke a little bit. Did you bull road coming up? So, and I'll say before you get into it, people ask me all the time when I'm slinging myself out of a perfectly good aircraft at 1,000 feet or 15,000 feet toward the ground. They go, "You're crazy for doing that willingly. And when I look at a bull rider growing up, I thought I wanted to do it for a minute till I got stepped on once by a steer. When I see you guys get on those bulls, I think what person willingly gets on this 2,000-pound beast and does it? What did bull riding mean to you growing up?
Pretty much everything. I never did it to impress anyone else. I done it to test myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if I was a cowboy enough to do it. And it's going to hurt.
Yep.
It does hurt. I'm 57 now, and I'm beat up. I've got scars all over me. And I promise you right now, if my body would let me, I'd get on one right this second.
Yeah.
I love that feeling. The adrenaline rush is unbelievable. When you climb up on one and nod, I mean, oh my goodness, it's you and that bull. Ain't nothing else in the world.
Yep.
And it's hard to explain what made you want to do it. I can tell you why I did it, but I don't know whatever possessed me to do it the first time.
What about the second time?
Well, this is kind of a messed up story. This is how backwards I am. Both of my older brothers were trying to ride, and both of them rode decent. My middle brother got hurt when he was in high school. A bull stepped on him, lacerated his liver. They called us from the hospital and said, if you want to see him, you better get up here now. And I made myself a vow right then that they could not hurt two of us. And so I just give it everything I had.
See, this is why I love this. I knew when me and Lou started talking. So those of you that rode a bull or been in a rodeo know exactly what Lou's talking about. Those of you that have been in a gunfight or jumped out of an airplane know exactly what he's talking about, because it's the same exact feeling. You know, the first time I went out and got in a good gunfight, I just couldn't wait to do it again. You know, it doesn't make no sense to 80, 90, 99% probably of the population, but it's just kind of the way we're built, I think.
I don't know if there's something wrong inside or something right inside.
Right.
I don't know which way to look at it.
Yep.
But I know it was fun, exhilarating, and a most powerful adrenaline rush you can ever possibly have, in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, so we spoke a little bit about your ranching background and stuff, and what it means. Right now, where we're at, this current day and age, how many years would you say you've been ranching?
Well, basically my whole life. My dad was running a ranch when I was born, and off and on from the time I graduated high school, I did a few other things. I framed houses a while. I worked in Taco Bell as a night manager while I was in college. That's hard to believe, but I was.
You'll Kiro Taco Bell.
But I do whatever it took to make a living so I could get back to ranching. And so basically for 45 years.
Yeah, and this is a whole show in itself, but what stands out to you when you see what has changed over the years?
Well, you know, technology's brought a lot of stuff in. You can get on a computer now and you can check out the cattle market. You can figure out what kind of medicines you need a lot easier than you could back in the day when my granddad and my dad were doing it. But the basics of raising a cow have not changed at all, other than the overhead is ridiculous now.
Yeah, and again, you say it's the basics, right? The military's the same way. We've got every gadget and gizmo, but every new Ranger I ever got, I said, what makes you a special operator is that you do common tasks uncommonly well.
Right.
It's not about all the stuff, all the kit and this and that. It's about getting up and going to work every day and showing up is probably the most important thing.
That's absolutely it. Your work ethic has to, that can't be questioned. You have to get up, you have to stay up, you have to stay ahead of them. If you got a bunch of heifers, Kevin, in a snowstorm, you better be out there with them. Yeah. Whether it's cold, hot, windy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if you lose something, if you lose one heifer, you're losing money.
Yeah.
And, you have to stay on top of things.
Yeah, and to just being a cowboy itself, you could speak we spoke a little bit before we started about why I loved having country kids is because they just found work. They didn't wait for somebody to say, hey, go do that. Either they said, what can I do? Or they just went over there and started working because they saw that where there was a need. Is that just something, is it just something that comes up in us, or is it from watching our dads and those cowboys in front of us that did it?
I think part of it is from growing up, watching and learning from them, but part of it's hereditary. You got a built-in work ethic. You can see when something needs done, even if you're wrong, you go attack it. Jump into it head first, and if you're wrong, they'll tell you you're wrong, but they're not going to be mad at you for trying.
That's right. That's right, and that is the exact same thing that we tell to a young person in the service. It's better to do something than to do nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, those young guys that we get in there, team leaders that are leading 4 or 5 people in combat. We always tell them, I would rather reach up and grab you and say, "Hey, slow down," than say, "Get your butt
Right.
moving, get moving."
It's a lot easier to pull you back than to drag you.
Absolutely. And it's easier on everybody around because then nobody else has to drag you as well, right? Doesn't take anybody else away from the fight.
That's true. And I like with my kids and stuff, I tried to teach them the same thing. Just get up and go do it. And if I need to help you, I'll help you. But other than that, just go. And that, to me, that's what I learned growing up.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go ask what should I do or can I do. I needed to be outside doing something, and if they wanted something else, they would come get me, and then we could go.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit cowboy, and the military is kind of in the same spot where getting recruits is not as many people are called to serve like they used to be. And then cowboy, and what are your thoughts? Is it a dying breed like some people say, or they write about, or is it just peaks and valleys like everything else in life?
It's a tough life. It really is. It's a great living, but it's a tough life. I mean, you're not going to make a fortune.
Yeah.
You're going to bust your butt day in and day out and probably be working for the bank and the feed company the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it for a dang thing. Yeah. And as far as it being a dying breed, I'm going to tell you the straight truth right now. Heck no, it ain't. Yeah. There's always going to be some gristlehead just like me that is not scared to work and will do his dangdest to carry on the cowboy legacy. And there's a bunch of us that nobody ever hears about because what we do is not glamorous.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it is a dying breed.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about the military. The right, through all the generations and all the conflicts, the right people who have felt the call, we've always got the right people at the right time when we needed it. And just the same, there's a lot of this go through their military career with no pomp and no circumstance. Not everybody's winning a Medal of Honor and getting valorous awards, but they're out there just working and serving their country. And it's very similar in this line of work. I think there's always going to be somebody there. There's always going to be a need, but doesn't mean it hasn't gotten more difficult over the years.
It is difficult now. The overhead's ridiculous. The fuel prices, the feed prices, everything it takes to maintain a ranch is up.
Yep.
But the cattle prices aren't up along with it. Now, if you go to the store and buy a steak, yeah, it looks like they're up.
Yep.
But there's a middleman in there somewhere that the processors, there's some government regulations being put on us that makes it hard for us to raise a cow the way we should when some of the countries across the border can raise them cheaper and they're letting them in.
Yeah.
That part's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But, I'll do it till I fall down.
And it's people like you that the country needs and hopefully help turn it around. And in that, you're on the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. As a rancher, there's some vulnerable moments. Fortunately, when the Barnett family headed west, we brought the rain with us.
Yes, you did.
Had quite a bit of rain the last couple of weeks, but you're waiting on, like you said, the price of beef fluctuating. Is it going to rain? Am I going to have to start paying out of pocket and buying feed because the grass isn't going to grow? With that in mind, what's Lewis's definition of vulnerability?
Well, you said it right on right there. Every rancher I ever known is waiting on rain. We need to, my goodness, you got to have rain. It does everything right. It makes your garden better. Yeah. It makes life better. This last couple of weeks, it's rained quite a bit, and there's smiles on ranchers' faces around here that I hadn't seen in years. It just changes the whole complexity. But the cattle prices, the fluctuation, that's been that way since the word go.
Yeah.
Everybody that's got their hand in it's trying to make their nickel. And so it bounces back and forth. But you raise the best calf you can and sell them and then raise another one next year.
Yeah.
So you kind of deal with that. It'd be great if there was a set price, but there never will be.
Yeah.
And as far as if it don't rain, you're buying feed, and they're, again, like I said earlier, working for the bank and the feed company. And if you're strong enough to hang on, someday it's going to get better.
Right.
And so you just pull your hat down and run into it and see what happens.
Yeah. And so what do you lean on or rely on or go to? Is it Nicole, the kids, the family? When it's hard, when it hasn't rained and it's the middle of July, what gets you through the hard times?
Well, my wife hears a lot of it. Every year she says that I say the same thing over and over every year. I always say, this is the driest I've ever seen it. This is the worst I've seen it. And I probably do say that because I'm always looking forward. I want it to be better. And boy, if things aren't going my way, I fret. I worry about it because there's some things I can't control.
Right.
And that bothers me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to I'm doing what I do because I want to give my kids their shot at life.
Right.
And which they're both doing good. They're grown up. They're fine. They've got great jobs. But when I finish ranching and they get rid of me, I want them to have the same opportunity that I have right now.
Yeah.
To continue.
And with that, back to the government side a little bit, right? My sister Kelly's going through her ordeal with the Forest Service.
Absolutely.
And there's listeners from here that know this industry there that grew up in feedlots or farms or on ranches, but there's a lot that don't understand what it means when they go and order a T-bone at a restaurant, and just how difficult the government and some of the people that should be helping you out are working against you. How do you deal with that?
It really does feel like they're against us, and that breaks my heart because we're supposed to be on the same team here. I appreciate you comparing what I do to what you've done in the military, but as a unit, we're supposed to be on the same team.
Yeah.
We're trying to help feed America, and in order for us to do that, we need to do the circumstances need to be on our side.
Yeah.
We can't control the rain, we can't control the prices, but we don't need the government going in doing like they're doing with Spike and Kelly and saying that they can't use their own waters. And my goodness, common sense has got lost in this whole deal.
Yeah.
They either they're vindictive towards us, or they absolutely have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I understand protecting some of the wildlife and stuff that they think of that their cause is, whatever their reasoning is. I get excited here and I'll forget how to use the English language, but it, to an extent, that's all fine and dandy. But without common sense, you're not saving nothing. You're hurting a lot more of the environment by trying to worry about some knuckleheaded mouse than you're helping.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like that they're doing way more damage than good. And there's going to come a time they're going to hit a wall. There's a bunch of us knuckleheads that won't put up with it.
Yep.
And that, I hate to say it like that, but it's reality.
Yeah, you can only push people so far, right? And you say some stuff there. You're supposed to be on the same side,
right?
And when I think of you saying that, our country just 2 years ago came out of the longest war in our history, and there have been many talks like this without a microphone and camera between us senior NCOs going, whose team are they on?
Right.
They're not. They don't let us breach doors anymore. They won't let us do this. They put more restriction on us. They put us in more danger than they are. They think they're helping, but they've never seen any. They've never been on the ground. Or you got officers who decided they made it and they're not going back on a helicopter anymore and risking their life. They're going to quarterback you from the jock and make decisions for you. And I truly believe this is great that I'm now out of the Army as we go into the season 2 of this, and I can say. I felt the same way with our government and some of our leadership coming out of, a very long war where we lost a lot of people, where I think, frankly, it was bad management.
Right.
And it's the same thing that you're seeing in the agriculture industry.
Well, it is because there's somebody somewhere sitting behind a desk coming up with these regulations that has no idea what it takes to raise a cornfield or to raise cattle or sheep or horses or anything else. And life is sustained by common sense.
Yeah.
And it seems like we've lost a lot.
Yeah. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Lou, and I don't know if you know or don't know, but if you don't, that's fine. But how much of our beef product do you think comes from outside the United States?
I can't tell you an exact number, but it's way more than it should be.
Right. And what he said there, and what I believe, it should be zero.
Right.
The same way with oil. We should
Absolutely.
We should be energy independent, and we should be able to feed our own people. The government and people they expect you to take care of your family, right, with the resources you're given, but they won't enable it to be cheaper and more cost effective for you to get it to take care of your family. They'll outsource it to somebody else so they can line their pockets with money, and it drives me nuts.
Well, and everything I've seen and read here lately, they talk about trying to help the foreign countries, they need help. Yeah, there's some countries that are the people are starving. Dang right, step up and help them. But do not take away from the American people first.
Right.
Let us do our own thing. We're fine, and then we will help them.
Right.
I'll be glad to help them up if I can.
Yeah.
But I'll be danged if I'm going to take away from my kids before I help them up.
And common sense people like you and me, we know we have enough to sustain ourselves here and still help those that are over
Absolutely.
there. And everybody be better for it. But I think it's greed.
Well, money causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, there's a reason it's said that money's the root of all evil. And what it does is when you chase that back, it hurts the lowest man. It always does.
Well, it hurts the working man.
Yeah.
You know, you look right now, they keep saying that they're building more jobs or they create more jobs. That what it was they got everybody to stay at home and not work, and they're giving them welfare money, and now they don't have to go back to work.
Yep.
So what in the world?
Yeah.
That's not that stuff can't last forever.
Yeah, and they've kind of demonized the blue collar person.
Oh yeah.
Your plumber, your electrician, your rancher. They're construction maggots. They're this, they're that. But you don't turn on your lights. You don't flush the toilet. You don't feed your family unless you have these guys down here getting up at sun up and going when sun down to make sure that you have all the luxuries you have to sit on your butt and collect that government paycheck.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned the plumbers and electricians. Everybody, it's all the same. Everybody I've talked to, they don't want to see them unless something's wrong.
Yeah.
Your toilet don't flush, they want to see them right then.
Yeah.
Your lights don't come on, they want them right then.
Yep.
But the rest of the time, they ain't got no use for them.
Absolutely. Well, this conversation quickly turned to any coffee shop with a bunch of cowboys in the Southwest after they get done doing their morning rounds. So I'll move on and I'll ask you. You've had some challenging days as a rancher, a military. I've had some challenging days when I've lost people or the mission didn't go right. What was your most challenging day as a cowboy, as a rancher, where you thought, I don't know if I should keep doing this?
Well, I could probably sit here for 2 months and tell you stories. I'll have to go back to Mother's Day, 2021. Routine morning, I got horseback and went to help my neighbors and my cousin, the Brutons over by the VLA. Got horseback, everything's fine. I'm loping across the pasture. My horse stuck both front feet in a hole and done a somersault, and I spent 4 days in the trauma unit in Albuquerque. And I remember when I was laying there in the dirt, face down, trying to get up, and my left arm was broke, and I couldn't push myself up. My right arm, I don't know what it was doing, is behind me or something. And I finally dug myself up out of the dirt, and I said out loud, I remember saying this, I said, God, if it's my turn, then come get me. But if not, I'm sure going to need some help. And all I could think about was my kids and my wife. I thought, I can't leave them like this.
Yeah.
And I got up. A man showed up and helped me. He seen my horse running off without me, and he come got me. Ended up at the hospital, and thank goodness everything worked out all right, and I'm back doing the same thing. And that was a scary thought. I've never been smart enough to be scared.
Right.
And that goes back to riding bulls. That might be part of that.
Right, I think
but
so.
That scared me that day. I really thought I run into something that I couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And that was a bad, bad feeling.
And what year? When was that? It wasn't that
That
long.
was a year and a half ago or whatever.
And you recovered fairly quick, didn't you?
Well, I was roping by the end of July. I laid in a recliner for dang near 2 months there, and I had 5 broke ribs, destroyed my collarbone, a concussion, of course, but I've had enough of them that don't matter. But I was fortunate enough. I can't say I'm in good shape because I'm not, but I was healthy enough that I was able to get up.
Yeah. And I think, did you kill a monster mule deer?
I did. This last November, yes. I got fortunate to kill the biggest deer I've ever got to hunt. Oh, my goodness. You'll get tears in my eyes talking about this now.
And I saw that because of your daughter. She posted that about you, how proud she was where you were after getting hurt. These hills aren't easy to climb up. I just got done spending an hour with them with my kids and about ready to cut their heads off because they were whining so much. And you went up there and did that. And I think it shows your resiliency, and it's just a mindset, I think.
Well, the funny thing
you don't
about
wallow in, hey, I'm broke, I'm going to sit here. How do I get better?
Yeah, I like to look forward. I don't care win, lose, or draw. I'm going to keep climbing.
Yeah.
And I can't be hurt. I can't lay down. It drove me crazy. That first 2 weeks I was laying in the recliner. Everybody else on the ranch was branding calves.
Oh, no.
And I'd hear them trailers bouncing around in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. They're feeding horses and saddling, and I'm laying there and can't get up. That bothered me, and I made myself a deal right then. You can either fold or you can cowboy up and do this right. And here I am.
Yeah, and there's been many Rangers I've known that have gotten hurt or wounded, and they had to sit there on that tarmac and watch those helicopters leave with their buddies on it, and they said, that ain't happening again.
Right.
Right. I'm getting back together. I'm getting myself back together. I'm getting myself back in the fight, and it's the same kind of mentality you got to have
Right.
to make it in this industry.
Well, sure. I mean, you have to want to.
Yeah.
And in any business, I think anymore, in any walk of life, if you don't have the desire, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah. And in addition to the, bull rider, poet, cowboy, rancher, Iron Man who recovered, you're also a husband and a father, right? And I just want to know what does it mean to you to be a dad? And your Tucson, he's in the National Guard still.
Right,
He's in the National Guard, and Michonne's a teacher and crushing it down there in reserve.
She's doing great.
Turncoat going to reserve, but you got to work, I guess. You love your kids, and I'm going to share a quick story. I played high school basketball, most of you know, and there was open gyms. We had open gyms in Daddle, New Mexico, and I was probably 14 or 15. And Michonne, I don't know, she wasn't very old then.
She was in a little walker thing to sleep, if I remember right.
And she was kind of there, and I was backing up fast, going on a fast break, and I plowed over Michonne on accident. And I saw Lou, who I'm a little bit bigger than Lou, but he came at me. I would have swore he was Shaquille O'Neal. He was about to whoop my ass. And I think Tuffy was there, and Tim Ging, who had to come over and calm me down and say, Lou, he didn't mean to do it, didn't mean to do it. But you were just a dad that was ready to defend his kid. And I've always thought of that moment as just, I respected the heck out of it after I cleaned my shorts out. But what does it mean for you to be a dad? What does that mean, that word?
It means everything. I mean, my dad and I were close, as I mentioned earlier, and I've done everything I could to provide that same feeling of love and comfort to my kids. And I'm very protective of them. I don't care if they're wrong or right. By gosh, they're going to be right. And I mean, I'm awful proud of them. Like you said, Michonne's teaching and coaching, and she's the AD.
Yeah.
She's everything that you can imagine, and she's turned that program around as far as the volleyball team. She works her butt off, and she takes pride in it. Tucson's working in a mechanic job right now, plus being in the National Guard, and he's proud of it. And, I mean, I can't be any prouder than, shoot, them are good kids, and their mom must have done something right.
A perfect segue to Nicole. Nicole, I knew Nicole growing up through the high school, to the school systems. I gave Nicole a hard time all the time. And then she had to go home and deal with Lou after work. What is that? When I say Nicole Sanders, what does that mean?
Well, it brings a smile to my face. She's got a spot in heaven, I guarantee you, for putting up with me. I mean, they have already cleared her off the red carpet. Oh my goodness, I can't even explain. But I'm so proud to be with her. And we twist each other's tails. We've had some trouble through the years. We've been married 32 years, and there's been some ups and downs.
Yeah.
But we shook each other's hands and looked each other in the eye and said, that's it, we're going to stick together, rough or not. Yeah. And we've been able to.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's times she'd like to choke me, but so far I'm faster than her. There's a reason I call her the bear, though.
Oh, that's so true. And I think just like the military, when you're married, it's a hard life.
Right.
It's a hard life. With you, the work can sometimes become overbearing. In the military, the work can sometimes take over life, and they got to tell you, they got to readdress and say, hey, you need to refocus a little bit here, guy. You, Tuffy, and you guys have made it. Tuffy and Dana, you and so many don't. I really respect the hell out of you for it, and the way you're a dad and a husband. It brings joy, because I came, my parents are divorced, and it's always good when I see somebody from back home who made it through those hard times.
My parents divorced when I was 18, a little bit after I graduated, and I didn't know at the time, but come to find out later on, they had some trouble before, but they stuck together. I was the third of the three boys and the youngest at the time, and they made sure and watched me through. And in a way, I'm awful glad they did, but in another way, it seemed like they really tormented each other.
Yeah.
But I made myself a deal that if I ever got married, I was going to do my dangdest to stand true.
Yeah.
And I got fortunate, married a beautiful, strong lady, and strong is the key word there.
And an understatement.
And she makes it easy to be me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And then, in addition to that, you do some poetry, right? You're
do.
kind of the Catron County poet, if I say. And I've spoke about the importance of creativity, right? When people are in the military, sometimes I don't think they realize how creative they are, where they're making door charges to blow doors off. They're doing math calculations and doing stuff, and they're doing operations orders, and they're creating and doing things. And sometimes when they leave the service, they quit creating, and
Right.
it kind of that's a lull. It's something that they're missing, but they didn't realize they were missing it. Henceforth, why I am this crazy old guy doing a podcast, because it kind of fills a void of creativity where I still have to, stay switched on and do things. What does poetry do for you?
I started writing when I think the first one I ever wrote was in '84. I graduated in '83, and I was working for a road construction company. I was a flag man, but not at the job site. I was about 2 miles down turning trucks around. They'd come by 2 trucks every hour. I was sitting there with my thumb in my butt, man. And I happened to have a pencil and a paper, and I love to make people smile. I like to laugh. I like to tell jokes. I like to have fun. Something clicked, and I wrote one down, and I liked it. I told some people, they liked it, and I thought, man, maybe this is something I can do. And I probably have 600 or more of them written on envelopes on any piece of, I might be written on your curtains. I don't know, whatever when the urge hits me, I write them down.
Yeah. And what do you think what does it do for you?
It brings a lot of peace to me in a weird way, because I write everything. I can make you cry. I can make you smile. I can make you shake your head and wonder if you need security being sitting this close to me. I mean, there's some twisted stuff in my little brain, and I use that as an outlet to get it out.
Yeah. And I've had people on here before that talk about the relation to pen and paper and how good it is for your brain to do that. It's good for you to do, whether you journal or record stuff and listen back to it. It just helps you out, and it's probably kind of your therapy.
Absolutely, it is. And I spend a lot of time by myself on the ranch, which is how I like it. But I'll see something, or it'll click in my mind. I think, man, I can put that on paper. Yeah. And so instead of waiting to do it, I'll do it right then. Yeah. And I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun doing it. That's awesome. And I've always loved the spotlight. Yeah. If you put me up on stage, I might not do it right, but we're going to have fun.
So through the 600 poems you've written, do you have a favorite? Can you recite your favorite?
I can. This is the one I was telling you about. I wrote when I was on the road construction crew, and it's called Cheyenne. It says, well, I was in a rodeo just north of old Cheyenne when a man walked up to me with some money in his hand. He said, son, I've watched you spur those broncs that no one else can ride, and I've never seen a young man with so much try. He said, if you need a job, well, I've got a place for you to go. If you'll break my colts for me, I'll pay for your rodeo. I said, you see, mister, there's something you need to understand. From Monday to Friday, I'll be one of your better hands. But when it comes time for another rodeo, I can't stay. I got to go. You see, I've been on the circuit since the day I turned 13, trying to ride the horses that people said was mean. All I've got left of my old dad are some pictures of him riding broncs that was supposed to be bad. He left all of his companions, said someday he'd be a champion. But in an Arizona rodeo, he got hurt, left all of his dreams laying shattered in the dirt. I told myself right then I could bring his dreams alive again. I looked down with a tear in my eye. I said, I'm determined to be a bronc rider, and that's why. He said, I've just come from the pay window. This is the money you've won. And then he threw his arms around me and said, damn, it's good to see you, son.
That's great. I got chills going up.
That's
and
what
down.
It's supposed to do.
That's what it does. And I've heard some of your other stuff. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And to land the plane, circle it in and land it here. A couple more questions. If you could go back to 20-year-old Lou, what advice would you give him?
I think I'd if I would have listened when I was 20, I probably wouldn't have listened.
That's the problem with all of us.
But I really think that patience and respect will take you a long ways. Yeah. If you learn a little bit of patience and respect those that are trying to help you without second guessing them, man, oh man, things could be different. Yep. Which I wouldn't want it any different. I'm awful tickled with what I got right now. But honestly, patience and respect go a long, long way.
And I think they mutually support one another. And I don't know about any 20-year-old ranger or 20-year-old aspiring cowboy. patience isn't something that's
No.
that not in their back pocket every day.
Probably couldn't even spell it.
Right, that's the truth. But there's probably somebody out there listening that needed to hear that to say, hey, maybe I should slow down a little bit and look at this from a different angle.
Well, I know I messed up a lot of different opportunities because I was pretty hammer-headed and I thought I was in a hurry, and I disrespected some people that I shouldn't have, and I didn't do it on purpose. But when it's all said and done, looking back, if I could see them people again, I'd shake their hand and apologize because I know I stepped on them. Yeah. And that's where the patience and respect really comes to me.
Well, Lewis, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking with us. I know the people that are in the service or been in service are going to hear the parallels between this cowboy way of life and what we do in the military. And there are a bunch of old cowboys out there that know Lewis that are going to be proud to listen to it. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing some of your poetry, a little look into your life. And thanks for being a supporter of the military. You're a big supporter. You're a huge supporter. I'll say, I guess it's already 4 years ago now, I brought out 9 of my snipers when I was a Delta Company First Sergeant in 375. And Lewis brought us over to his ranch and said, there's the mountains, boys. Go up there. Just don't shoot one of my cattle. And those guys still talk about that, and that I appreciate it. It meant a lot to them. They still ask me, when are we going back? And I said, well, I'm not in the Army anymore, so no, well, we're not.
I've never been so impressed with a group of people in my life. Everyone was, I mean, I've known you, obviously, but the men you introduced me to were so polite and so kind and so amazing to watch shoot. I guarantee you don't want to make them guys mad. You're in trouble if you do.
Yeah. Lou, thanks. It was fun. I knew
Thank
it was going to be fun,
me.
And I hope it keeps raining.
Oh, my gosh, me too. It's amazing. Yeah. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.